But when someone buys that, I'm making a connection with that person.
Yeah.
That art becomes a bridge. And I value that connection. I mean, for me, art is about connecting.
Welcome to the Red, Green, Blue Podcast.
Okay, here we are with James Rees, who's an incredible artist and incredible art educator. He has won many national awards in art education. So many, I can't list them all, but he's also got a commission to do research by the NAEA, National Research Commission, and a distinguished fellow of the NAE. Again. So I know this is like, we primarily speak with filmmakers on this podcast. You might not know those acronyms, but the visual art world, if you think the film art world is competitive, the visual art world is next level. I think it's because the barrier to entry is less. You have to mark paper, and the market is actually smaller than film. And so it's just like the art world is the most, if you can make it in the art world at all, like if you know anybody who's making any living and any capacity in visual art, they're amazing because it takes that to get there. So I'm really excited to be talking to James Rees, and we're going to talk about his thoughts on art. And especially when you teach art, you think about art a lot. When you're just doing it, you might not think about it as much. But when you're teaching it, you have to think about it because you're explaining it to people. You're explaining the field. And so anyway, thanks for being here, James.
No, thanks for the invitation. I'm always happy to talk about creativity, about art education, and those kind of overlapping.
That's great. Yeah, no, and I think no matter what discipline you're working in film, they all connect. They're all the same. I mean, I work in a number of different fields, and I find like there's culturally distinctions, but the act of creating, the act of making is identical. Yeah. It's just different barriers and different modes. So first of all, we'll just talk about your art career first, like displaying art. Now, there's a lot of different ways. A lot of distribution methods would be the term we'd use in film. But what's the difference between showing in a gallery as opposed to showing in a museum?
That's a great question. I actually have a different body of work that I show in museums.
Yeah.
That's a different scale, a different subject matter and approach than what I sell in the galleries that represent me.
Yeah.
It's just knowing the audience and the context, right? In a museum, it's very much it's not so much about selling art. It's about connecting with ideas and exploring and pushing kind of the envelope of expressing your perspective on things through a visual medium. And in a gallery, you're doing the same, but you're doing it at a different level. And so usually the work's smaller, more accessible in imagery and content.
Yeah.
At least it is for me.
So you're showing smaller and more accessible.
Yeah.
Like something you got to think like, oh, how would this look in somebody's house? And this is a mechanism of like making a living in art.
Yeah. Not so much that, but how it will connect with people.
How it connect with people.
Yeah. So this week I was at an event for 3 days, and the work that I sold some large works, some medium works, but mostly they were 11 by 15 prints.
Yeah.
Hand pulled prints. And so that kind of seems to be the bread and butter within the gallery world for me, are that size. Also, I sell them on Instagram, which is another, not Instagram, but online, but it's another venue.
Yeah. How do you feel the internet and social media in particular has influenced like art sales in the gallery and the art world in general?
Well, I think we live in a day and age where people check things out online to see how valid someone is. If they're someone that they want to connect with, or they're important, right? They look at the website and see, oh yeah, this guy's doing something or she's engaging in something. And so it's a way for them to get some context and background about what they're buying. And maybe get some vibe about visually how an artist presents himself on a website may display their professionalism or the lack thereof.
Okay. Yeah. So to me also, like, people like to get to know the artist. They like to have a story. I mean, I don't know. If you ever been in a collector's home or they're showing you around their art collection, they love having things to say about each piece of work they bought. And in a way, that's kind of like their pride and joy.
Oh, absolutely. People buy art and they're connecting with the artist and the statement. And so there was someone I was talking to who said, how do you sell your work? You know, for me, when I make my art, it's like each one is like my child, my baby. And I said, well, for me, it's about connecting with ideas when I'm processing and making art images. It's about me working through things. But when someone buys that, I'm making a connection with that person.
Yeah.
That art becomes a bridge. And I value that connection. I mean, for me, art is about connecting.
No, it's true. And I mean, I think that's something, if you work in the arts, you kind of take for granted that you have these ideas, you're making this thing, and most people's jobs are not that exciting. They can be not. I mean, even if you're like a big investment banker, and you're making millions of dollars a year doing mergers and acquisitions, you have an exciting life. They'll go to the art gallery, and it's so different than their normal life. And the artist is so different than their life, and normal people they meet, they like to carry that home.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a great catalyst for them to think and feel and see a perspective that's different than their own. And I think we value that. It's not something that like even some movies today are kind of like made by committee and lack a clear, distinct voice and vision.
Yeah.
When you buy a work of art, hopefully it has that it is really an honest attempt at expressing something or conveying an idea.
Yeah, no, in fact, I saw on Sotheby's, they had an auction recently with a collector who she bought a lot of really amazing impressionist paintings in the 60s. It was a really impressive collection. And she invented, believe it or not, artificial eyelashes. Like that's how she made her hundreds of millions of dollars. Apparently they're still used. But she had died and her children were selling her whole collection. And if you ever want to look up an interesting video online, it's these two daughters introducing this collection for the Sotheby's. And you anyway, curious bunch. And, but you see like she just really wanted to carry this beautiful object home, this story, and have it throughout her house. And she had hundreds of millions of dollars so she could buy like top shelf stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's another aspect is investing and so on. But, but it's interesting to see how collectors will unify around a theme or something, even as trivial as like holding hands. I saw one collector who had like every kind of image and picture you can imagine of holding hands.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, what collectors have you experienced by your work? What do you think connects with them?
Yeah, I'm not sure what connects them. I do notice that those that collect my work, just being at the show, I can see people that zone out as they pass by my art, that it doesn't connect with them. Those that do are drawn in by the story and the content and the layers of meaning that they find in the. So I do monotype printmaking primarily, and that's what I sell most of. I do some oil painting, but they're intrigued by the process, so they're more interested in the story behind the imagery. So the craft of actually making the images interesting.
Yeah,
the craft, but also the story behind the craft, right? Yeah. What's motivating and driving it, because anyone can do a landscape, but to do something that's a little bit more personal, that there's some vulnerability in as an artist to share that things I'm working through in my studio, personal imagery that might reflect challenges that I'm facing, and sharing that on the wall of a museum or a gallery or in any event or online. And hopefully I'm hoping it lands well with someone. But, not everyone wants that. Some people don't want that kind of degree of honesty or that vulnerability, right? Of looking at their life in that way through the eyes of an artist.
Yeah. Well, of course, the prime example of that is art you see in like Marriott hotels and other large hotel chains. Like it's always interesting. I think you could do an art exhibit on hotel art because it's interesting in its nothingness. It's like the most unoffensive thing that you can pretty much imagine. And there it is.
Well, and some gallery, some hotels that have shifted that. C21 is a series of hotels that are boutique.
No, that's the biggest area growing in hotels.
Oh, yeah. And the family, I understand, has a collection of really nice contemporary art. And so they're showing it, they own it. And it's a win-win-win.
It is.
Yeah.
And people it's a mistake in a way. Especially with high-end boutique hotels, people would come to just see the art.
Oh,
they just stay in your house. Yeah.
C21 hotels, if you stay there, you're like, wow, it's a museum and a hotel.
Yeah. No, and that's great. And they could charge double the rate of a normal
they charge
hotel.
more. It's worth
triple.
it.
Yeah. So what the Bellagio tried to do that kind of more on a mass scale, I think, and I don't think it went too well. I've noticed they've sold most of their stuff, it seems.
I don't know if Las Vegas is the right venue for fine art. Are not going there for that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So what about, as far as like the museum, what about the process of doing a museum show?
Well, most of the museum shows, I was fortunate to be in a 2-person show at a museum with my brother.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, that was really exciting.
And that was writing a proposal. So there's 2 ways. There's exhibits that are curated, and there's a call for entry, and then, you you submit and then
Yeah.
it's juried and you get in or you don't get in. So that's the most common. The other way is you can write a thesis and suggest that, you have something to say that would be beneficial for the demographic that goes to that museum.
Yeah.
And that your work or a combination, I usually like to show with other people and you pitch it,
Yeah.
I have a couple of galleries that I've pitched a couple of exhibits with other colleagues and say, I think this is an interesting idea worth exploring, and I think it could be lucrative. You could sell the work as well, but there's an interesting idea, and for me, I'm really interested in that the curatorial aspect of arranging artwork is interesting as what you do within the confines of a piece of paper or canvas, that orchestration of ideas and the combination of different voices, different artists and their work playing off of each other can be really a dynamic, interesting thing and can be beneficial for the gallery.
Oh, yeah. No, the curatorial side is fascinating. And that's, to me, there's two ways to look at it as artists. One thing is I feel when you get a museum show, it's surprising. You have the body of work all done. You think it's going to be a breeze. No, it's a lot of work. It's a lot. It's a lot. And partially it's that process of how it's going to fit in that space in particular, what the curator's opinions are, what they want to write about it. And it may even kind of surprise you. You're kind of like, oh, that's what they're leading with in the press release. You don't really control it and so on, but there you go.
I've run into museums sometimes and the way it's curated, it's puzzling. And then it's not a bad thing, right? It gets you to stop and think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Why did they put these two works just juxtaposed together? And what are they trying to say about that relationship?
Yeah.
And then other times you see an exhibit at a museum and you go, oh, they don't know what they're doing. It's just poorly arranged.
Yeah, no. And it's really a joy to work with a wonderful curator.
Yeah.
But the only time this really where I've been kind of like, because again, I think when people go to the museum, they make the mistake of thinking this is completely the artist. And a reporter was doing a story on a show I was done. And he asked me, so why does it have this title? I was like, I don't know, actually. That was a comment I said to him when we were setting up, and it became the title. But I didn't really expect it to be the title, and it's not the title I would do, but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that has a value too, right? Sometimes stepping outside of your work when someone curates it and maybe sees something differently than you do, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not. And I view a visual art, I think it's easy to get hung up with visual art. Any plastic art and this implies to film, gets stuck, but it's like a performance, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. You're just always moving on to the next thing. Like when a dancer gets out of step a little bit during one night, they don't let it ruin their day or their week. They just do the performance the next night.
Well, it has to be a playful interaction, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's part of the journey and it's the process of curation, right? It's great.
And even creating,
Yeah. No, and about,
Yeah. So let's talk about education. So especially you taught at the high school level and won every award anybody can win in education. Pretty much. I know someone in education can be commenting no, it's this one. No, pretty much all of them. You can Google it. I'm not going to list them all. And especially at a national level. And he taught James taught at a public high school, which is also unique. I think that's partially in Utah. We don't have a private school ecosystem and stuff. And we're right next to a major university and they get first pick of people who come out of it. And so really I went to this high school and the quality of teachers there I haven't seen anywhere else is pretty astonishing. And and you're excellent, tremendous amount of successful artists have come through your classrooms over the years. You're just talking about a major one in LA and so on. And again, that's really, really rare. Even major university, I was teaching at, it was a big university, but it was third tier. And I asked the program director in it, what's your most successful person who's ever graduated from the program in your 20 years teaching there? And he just couldn't think of anybody. Nobody had gotten a job from his program in 20 years,
Yeah.
And so, it's that rare. Even major art schools like Rhode Island School of Design and so on, they'll have 3 or 4 people a year who, if that, they'll have some good years, some bad years. I went to graduate school at one of the best art school in the United Kingdom. And my girlfriend ended up being a major artist in England, but everybody else I knew, no. So anyway, very successful teacher, really great track record. So what do you feel is the main thing in teaching, particularly a high school age person, about art? Like, what's the
That's
first
a good
thing you do?
question. Well, to kind of contextualize a little bit why I think our program was successful while I was teaching in the high school is I really tried to approach the classroom much like I do in my studio practice, and that's really about taking risks, exploring, and really leaning into curiosity. And hopefully the students, develop their own voices while we're searching together as a class. It's always a challenge. But I think what you need to do is get them to think like artists, to process, right? The mechanics are easy, right? If you want to learn how to paint a landscape, you can find that in YouTube.
Yeah.
You can find it anywhere. The mechanics are not so important. Is helping students develop skills of ideation.
Yeah.
Visual journaling, I think, is key. Helping them to understand that they need to trust their vision and voice and explore that within the pages of a sketchbook. And then later, the mechanical things will come with time. Just, trial and error through time, you get more, your prowess increases. But if you knowing the anchoring that you're saying something and that what you have to say is valid and that your perspective of the world is important. Yeah. As important as anyone else's. And so that's what I tried to do is get, even though I had a class and sometimes as many as 40, that I tried to get them to really individually find their own voice, align with the mechanics, the language of the visual art, what are the elements and principles that you lean towards. And for whatever reason, that may be something that's just very personal and important to them, but owning that and developing that, because in time, your painting skills will increase, your printmaking skills or sculpting or whatever it is. But relying on your intuition of what is your work all about. Why are you making something? Right?
That is a great thing to do. That is amazing, because I do think like the people, art teachers sometimes like, well, you can't begin to talk about what you want to talk about until you learn this craft, until you learn this, this, and this. And there's like a checklist, and then you'll be real. I mean, this happens in film school where it's kind of like you take all these classes, and then when you graduate, when you're senior year, you'll actually make a movie. Which is kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Like the first thing you should do is make a movie, and it's going to be terrible, but just make the terrible movie.
Yeah.
And especially with digital, it used to be like film was prohibitively expensive, but now digital, just make it. And so that's a wonderful way to view it, because that's really what even keeps you making an art.
Yeah, your motivation, right?
Yeah, because you get bored of the craft or something.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like in the visual arts, in education, typically the teachers will teach the art elements of principal design first, like the language, right?
Yeah.
But I have found that it's better to share that with them as they have the need for like color, or composition. Until they know what they need, the tools don't mean anything. And if you, learn the whole alphabet and don't have anything to say, it's not very important. So switching that and turning it on its head, I think, was effective in helping people, as they're struggling, say, hey, you may want to think about this, or, but it's not very helpful to kind of lay it out mentally. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
To give them all the visual language and at their their fingertips, but if they don't know what they connect to, and that emotional connection or mental connection to those elements, it doesn't mean anything. They're just meaningless, and they're just mechanical.
Well, and they don't know what medium and what process is going to work for what they want to say.
Oh, exactly.
Like we had an artist on here previously, Dave Hobbin, and he talked about like when he first started in
Dave's
school.
Great.
Oh yeah, you know him. Oh yeah. No, he talked about how they really pushed him to do oil paintings, and he's just like, it just took too long. It drove me nuts. I remember I was roommates with him actually when we were in college. It was just so random. Again, he's like one of the most successful artists in the state. We were roommates. Like, successful artists are around me. I randomly. But anyway, he's like, he would do most of his work with a ballpoint pen when we were roommates. And he's like, I don't know what it is, but I just really like a ballpoint pen. I'm like, you sure you don't want to get like a fancy $5 pen maybe? He's like, no, a big ballpoint pen does the job. And I can't get around that. Yeah. And that's what worked for him. And he's had a lot of success with it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm really a firm believer that I'm drawn to printmaking, the multi-layers, forming an image and having it emerge. It seems to align with my mental sensibilities and my creative approach. Yeah. And I think every artist needs to stumble upon that medium that resonates with the way they process things.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And it takes a while.
And again, I mean, just to tie it back to filmmaking, I mean, you can see this with filmmaking. It's harder to see because there's like more equipment and there's more people around. But in a way, like in a movie set or even how you handle the camera is kind of like your pen. and it's a very expensive pen. It's a $10,000 a day pen, but it's like your pen. You can see like how like Woody Allen like orchestrates it differently than Michael Bay or, and it's just keeping it small. I mean, for me personally, like I really would rather work on the movie than manage crew. And so I just try to have as few people as possible. In fact, we had a filmmaker on here previously. He doesn't even have a scriptie, which is the person who overlooks the script. And he says, he actually said this to me off camera. He's like, oh, well, we're supposed to not be able to make a movie without a scriptie, but I'm doing it. I've made 60 movies without a scriptie. So there you go. So it's finding the way you like to work. And I think like people try to impose on you the way you want to work. I mean, the way they work and project it out. But really, I mean, that's really generous of you that you let people discover their own and recognize that and are sophisticated enough to understand that that's what people need to do.
Well, and in the educational system, it often that people want the end product to be really polished and finished, even in high school or middle school or even elementary. But if it looks good, but they haven't gone through the mental, emotional work to figure out the journey to get there, and that journey is personal and meaningful, then they've kind of you've cut out the important part. Is that point of discovery, learning their own voice and the ideas that they're wanting to search. Everyone can do a painting like Van Gogh, right?
Yeah.
But why do we want any more Van Goghs? We want the uniqueness that each individual has, their perspective, and that's something I try to emphasize in the classroom is conjuring that out and creating an environment where there could be individual growth for the individual to find their way.
It's true. World. And also, I mean, even like you kind of see, I mean, once you spend a long time art, you see what mattered to you in those particular times, and what you learned and what you grew. And you might look back and like, oh, well, it's interesting that mattered to me when I was 17 or 16. I mean, to me, I've noticed a lot in high school art, there's a lot of friend paintings. Like, here's my friend. In fact, I went to the high school art show here at Springville, and there's like a bunch of friends with their face pressed into glass. And it was like kind of interesting perspective. And it's like, because friends are so important to them, to high school students. But in a way, that's good because that's what they're connecting with. That's what's important to them.
Yeah, but there are also in that same show, there's people working on individual things like body image and other things that are a little bit more, personal and edgy and risky.
No, don't get me wrong. I mean, like high school art shows are fascinating in their range of quality. I mean, again, I thought that was actually fine. I mean, whoever the artist is, I'm not bashing them. I mean, good for them. Getting in the show is hard. It's super competitive.
Oh, it is. It's very competitive. Yeah.
But I mean, there were 2 pieces in there that were as good as any piece you could see anywhere. I mean, like it could have come out of like one of the top graduate schools and it was amazing, And again, like, this is astonishing what like 18-year-olds can accomplish.
Absolutely. If they're given the right environment and the encouragement, they can do a great job.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I think in a way, we kind of sell ourselves short, like, because like all the portraits, like all the people on the money are old, but actually when they did the thing that made them be on the money, they were actually very young. Like George Washington was 40 when he led the revolution. Most of his generals were 25.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But we kind of sell people short. We're like, absolutely. You'll do that later. But 18-year-olds can do great work. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein at 19. There you go. So that's good. So what keeps you? Well, this is another unique thing about James. You may just take it for granted. He's an art teacher who makes art. Be surprised to make stop kind of doing it. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. So what has kept you motivated to keep making art?
Oh, well, you hit the nail on the head. This is something I discuss a lot in the art education circles. Had a big audience last year when we discussed this about why it's important for art teachers to keep making art.
Yeah.
And we had a packed house because I think people struggle with that. If anyone's taught, they realize how emotionally, physically demanding a job it is. It really is.
Oh, it's so emotionally demanding because you have all these little souls.
Yeah.
And they're looking up to you in a way. And you're like, I'm just me.
And stuff happens.
And stuff happens with them, and they're going through stuff, and it's such a tumultuous time of age, like their parents get divorced or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, your question was again,
why did you keep making art?
Yes.
Sorry. But,
I forgot. I got off the
No, that's my fault. My fault.
No, but it's why I started teaching. Art matters to me. That process, that journey. I mean, I had two great high school art teachers in Timpview. And I wanted to not lose that. And in fact, I remember talking to one of the other teachers, and they hadn't made anything in 20 years. And I thought, that seemed so strange to me that you're teaching something you're not doing yourself.
Yeah.
It seemed inauthentic. It seemed disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a challenge, but I've always kept it up because it's important to me, and I didn't want to lose that. So, for 30 years, teaching was 70% of my job, but the other 30 was I was doing art and trying to balance that and make, be a father, be a spouse, and do all the other things, and juggling that and keeping that balance was a challenge. But now I'm doing art 70% of the time, and then I'm doing some teaching of that on the side. I do some consulting work with a company back east, Davis Publishing, and now that's the 30%.
Okay.
So they've kind of shifted, but I've always kept art production as something that was valuable, and that just was, like anything that's intentional or anything that's important, you have to just schedule it out, and you have to be routine. You have to have that routine.
Make a priority and be like, okay,
Absolutely.
I'm making art, making something, even if it's terrible, in this 2-hour time period on Tuesday or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way. I do think a lot of people, it's like, I mean, it's art. Art is emotional. Teaching is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes emotionally hard for them to make art.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Something I did, and something I preach about to educators is in between the transitioning from the classroom into the studio. It's important, I think, to do something that kind of cleanse the palate or you shift gears eventually. For me, it's mountain biking. I go and do that, and it kind of clears me emotionally, physically.
Oh yeah,
I'm ready to enter into a new creative space. I do see the classroom as a creative space, but it's very different than what happens in the studio. But there's some overlap. But you have to do something to shift gears.
Yeah, something physical. That's a really good idea. Yeah. I mean, mountain biking, that'd be wonderful. But I mean, even if you could just do like 2 sets of push-ups,
absolutely, or yoga or something,
just like something just to kind of shift your brain. Yeah, no, I mean, to me, a traumatic thing about teaching, and I mean, I only taught for a few years, but is that a hard thing about it is you see kids going through problems and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's just weird. I don't know. You
can create a safe space. Hopefully.
Well, yeah, I mean, they get in your classroom, they have a good time, but you're one of, there's only so much. I mean, even your best friend, there's only so much you can do if they're going through a problem.
Yeah, but you do what you can do, right? With the constraints that you have.
Yeah. So anyway, but still, you're there. I mean, you're just exposed to so many people. And also another thing is, particularly in public high school, you're just there. Whoever signs up the class, you're like, oh, you're going to affect the quality of my life for the next 3 months.
Well, and that is the challenge in high school. You have some that are there because they really want it, and other people that are there just because they were put in that class. And it's sometimes hard to convince people that the arts matter to them, or could potentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, this is, in a way, maybe why I didn't last in teaching. But I had a theory that, like, art is hard. I'm going to teach this fast. I know you can see the students are just getting it. I'm just going to keep moving with them because they're the ones who are going to, this really matters. And then some don't, but they get frustrated. You keep moving. And so do you teach to, like, the bottom of the class or to the top of the class?
That's a good question.
Or do you find a happy medium?
I'm trying to bring everyone along, but obviously I'm trying to convey the content of what we're trying to get, the ideas. And it does, and the thing, when I taught, anyone could rework thing any time they wanted, as many times as they needed to get to that place. And some people, it will take longer. Yeah. But it does take effort, and sometimes people don't want to do that, for they want something easy. I'm sure you hear this all the time with video production. I did a project with digital storytelling. Students were amazed how much work was involved in putting together a digital story, right? Yeah. Images and audio.
Oh, so much work.
Nobody understands. And I said, it's almost like a work of art, isn't it? But they're sometimes surprised by the effort. And anything meaningful does require a lot of work and effort, but not everyone's wanting to be able to put that in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also I think that's a thing, like, there's a great movie, Art School Confidential. Have you seen it?
I haven't. I've heard of it. I have a friend that recommended it.
You should watch it. I mean, it's kind of a satirical view on art school. It stars John Malkovich, but it's, if you've been to art school, it will ring true with you. But there's a character there who ends up being the murderer. Sorry, spoiler. But he he's like a legit artist, and he's like he talks to the young artists and he says, do you think people do art because they want to go to be in the center of attention at a big show opening? They don't. They do it just for that creative bliss when things connect. Mm-hmm. And that's 100% true. Because if you do art, you do way more production than you do show openings.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I think people, they see the artist at the show opening and they're like, I want to be that person. But you don't realize like that's such a small part of the job. And honestly, people who last in art, I don't even feel really like show openings a whole lot. I mean, they like them, but it's more complicated than you think. You'd said I mean, what are your feelings on show openings?
Yeah, I like them. Only, it is kind of mixed, right? Because, if your work's not getting awards, or maybe it's not even on the wall, right? Maybe you go to a show opening to support others. Yeah. But I really like the connection. There's a potential to connect with people. And again, for me, whether it's teaching art, making art, or showing art, it's all about connecting with others. And that's a very human quality that we all go through our own individual lives with experiences, but there's a lot of commonality in those experiences and emotions. We all can understand heartache and challenges and trials that people go through. We go through different trials, but we all have something that we can relate with. Like, I get that. That's a difficult situation. So for me, the art provides, or the art opening provides an opportunity to discuss that.
No, it's true. I mean, one thing I find awkward about show openings is, and this maybe says something about me, is like I really like your work comment. Like, I'm not quite sure what to say back, I mean, because you're glad they like it and you're glad that they're telling you because I guess that's what you're in. But to me, I never know what to say, but like, oh, thank you. It was a lot of work. I mean, I don't know. Or like, thank you for coming. Yeah. It's like, which feels kind of trivial, but it's like, I don't know what to say.
Well, the comment I don't know what to do with is interesting. Your work is interesting. Like, I think that's good, but it could be negative, right?
No, that in a way, that's an art, the worst comment you can get. And this usually, I have to say, comes from fellow artists at your show opening.
That's interesting, yeah.
Or like, your art's fun. Like, whoa, buddy. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming and saying my art was fun. Yeah. But I think, they're kind of, I mean, art's really hard. Art's really complicated. Sure. And, maybe they haven't had a show for a few years and they're going through something. Yeah. Whatever. And I personally like some of the awkward expressions, whether it be from me or from someone else, that they're really working through something genuine. And that means it's going to be clumsy sometimes. Yeah. But I'd rather have a clumsy work of art than something polished, but is trying to say something that's honest and sincere. And, I'm attracted to artwork that it really is about something. Yeah.
And sometimes, you get it wrong, but, it's an attempt. And I'd rather have an attempt than someone just safely, relying on their facility with the medium.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, of course. I mean, the thing about art shows, I mean, particularly here in Utah, you get a lot of people, like the art community supports the art community. And there's like, there's less of a kind of a general, like, that's one thing. Whenever I'm in New York or doing anything in New York, I'm like, wow, there's like an audience here. Mm-hmm. This is fantastic. Like, there's people who work in finance and then come to art shows for fun. It's amazing,
Well, and
we get a bit of that here, but
we do. We have a good community. I really have felt that Utah has a unique group of artists that support each other.
Yeah.
And you don't even have the same stylistic or perspective on art, but people are trying to be supportive of each other. And I love that. And we also have some good patrons. I'm on the board at the Springville Museum of Art, and I've seen behind the scenes that people don't always see that we have people that are really supportive of the art and how it connects with the community. And they're putting their money where their mouth is and supporting good things and making things happen for the museum, the artists, and the community.
No, it's true. I mean, it's funny. Like, I remember there was a comment. We were in a Utah Arts Council meeting together, and someone made the comment like, so much more money goes to sports than arts in Utah, and Utah's just garbage. And you're like, well, that's kind of everywhere. So I hate to break it to you, because that's true. Like, you think like a province is a local thing, but it's like, just more people are interested in sports than art. There you go. Just live with it.
Yeah. It's funny.
No, to me, like, and especially like in film, like, I mean, I talked about this on another podcast, but it's like, there's, especially at the highest levels, there's the egos. And like, you can complain about it, but why? Because it's just there. It's just something you have to navigate.
But we do have some good things here in Utah that are kind of unique. We have a really great art education community, and our classes, like you were talking about, Provo High. Yeah, there's some really good programs throughout, and it's dedicated teachers. It's not the money.
No, of course not.
We've got a lot of people that are really dedicated towards helping students to craft their own medium, their own message through a medium. And I think that's kind of something we forget. I know that having worked on several things behind the scenes, that we adopted some really aggressive art stances early on. I mean, we have the oldest arts council in the United States.
Oh, really? The United States?
The whole United States, very first. So, people kind of think Utah's backward, but it's not borne out by the data.
No, it's true. Yeah. It's not. And also I'm always amazed at how talented people are here. I mean, even like filmmaking, we have some phenomenal filmmakers who are in national stuff routinely, and people would not expect that in a million years. Like we just had a filmmaker who had a feature film at Sundance, and I went to his panel, and it was like him and two New Yorkers, and a New Yorker and an LA, and then little old person from Pleasant Grove, Utah, with a feature length film that he financed and directed and produced all by himself. That's awesome. It's amazing. And there's really a lot of great things going on. So working on the national art education, what do you feel the status of that is now? And I mean, without getting too political, we're an apolitical podcast, and this is...
Well, it's hard to know where things are going. Obviously, with the dismantling of the educational, and funding that's attached to that, the National Endowment of the Arts, it is disconcerting because the arts are always cut, right? I mean, that's something that we seem like, I think people neglect to understand, politicians, that the arts matter not just because of the economic money they bring in, but the value it gives a community as a unifying force, right? Brene Brown talked about the value of the arts in education in that it helps students understand what they're thinking and feeling. Mm-hmm. And that's based on data. And I really think that's true. It's a reflective mirror, whether it be dance, drama, film, or whatever, or visual arts. It helps students to understand what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And that's something I think our high school students need. I think our adults need that equally. And the arts really can be a great blessing to a community. It unifies. It helps us to reflect on what's going on in very powerful emotional ways. And I guess I'm a little concerned that it's going to go away, but I'm optimistic. I think there's, whatever happens, I think the ship will right. It'll be counterbalanced. It'll come back to
I feel art always finds a way. It seems, I mean, it's a delicate thing, but it's still at the same time, if someone's going to make it, they're going to make it.
Sure. And artists are very familiar with working in creative constraints, and one of those constraints are finances.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And as far as it's funny in the money, and that was the thing, that was a surprise to me, because I think if you do art in Utah, money doesn't even cross your mind that you can make money doing this. I went to graduate school with the goal of becoming a teacher. It didn't even occur to me. But when I got there, every other person there, oh, I don't want to teach. I'm going to be a professional artist. Yeah. Every single one. I was like, really? And then I found I was the only one who applied to jobs after school ended.
Yeah.
Because they all had trust funds. I mean, quite frankly, they did. Oh. They oh boy, whatever. They'll hate me. Not all of them. Some are, they're all good people. People's trust funds are good, but they didn't have to work. I remember saying that. Yeah. And a lot of them, I was one of the younger students. They were in their 40s. I was 25 when I did graduate school, and I was go, go, go. And they're a lot of them are still doing the same thing they were doing, But, but I was at a show opening with a friend of mine, and this guy was a really great artist. And his dad owned a major flooring company. He didn't have to work, but he was a really great artist. And he had a show opening, and he sold his whole show in the first hour. I mean, he's a Turner nominated person. That won't mean anything in Utah or in America, but in England, that's the Academy Awards of art. There's no parallel in the United States, but it's really big. It's on national prime time, and he was nominated. So he sold his entire show in 1 hour. He made $350,000. And I was after the show, I was well, that's pretty cool. You made $350,000. I mean, I didn't want to be about the money. It was cool art. Yeah. But he's I don't think about the money. But I was that's still it never even occurred to me that you could sell anything.
Yeah.
I was amazed when you could sell a print for $200.
Yeah.
So art is a big money biz.
It is.
It's billions of dollars.
And some artists are better at navigating that than others. And
yeah, if you're involved in visual art or even a fan of visual art, I for some reason I hadn't done this before, but I went to Art Basel in Miami last year, and it was fascinating just to see it's Art Basel is a huge art fair, for the biggest one to the United States. It's Miami in December. And you get to see kind of the audience of art because everyone's there. And you get to see all the galleries, and you get to see like art is a very spread out discipline, very small, even in big cities. Like you could see every gallery in the Chelsea Art District in New York in an afternoon. I mean, it's just not that many art galleries even in New York. But there you can spend 2 days and not see everything and then not see everything. And it's fascinating, but it's interesting to see the commerce and stuff. People actually buy stuff. Like I said, one piece, I was like, wow, this is a really great piece. I said, how much is it? And they're like, well, it's already been sold. I'm like, oh, to who? And it was like, to the Walton family, like Mary Walton or something. I don't know. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like billionaires are here buying stuff. That's amazing. So anyway.
And art is an investment, right? For those that know that you know, if you buy low and sell high, or if that's what you want, or if you just really are attracted to the work of art. I mean, I really personally love it, and I'd love to make that kind of money on a show, but I'm more interested personally on when the artwork connects and speaks to someone, because then we're sharing a common ground and a moment in a way.
No, it's true. And even for that art person who sold that artwork, because I can tell you the other side is that you see a lot of people not selling artwork at Art Basel, like a lot. I remember there was one guy, he did a young man who was clearly just out of school, and he had done a bunch of naked nudes, and he was, rounder, not ideal. And I mean, I'm not saying that would impede him selling his art, but he was selling nothing. I mean, he was sitting in his room, surrounded by people with nobody in his room, looking not too happy.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing about being an artist. I mean, put himself out there and.
True. But at least he's at Art Basel, right?
At least he's trying. No, he's.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have actually a program where artists can get their own gallery space there for a discount price to kind of like decommercialize it a bit, but it's super commercial.
It's still expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, is it? I mean,
I think it's pretty pricey. Yeah.
It's got to be particularly. But yeah, but even people with representation, there's a lot of people not selling stuff, So it's very, very much the big names you hear about sell a lot, but living artists and stuff, not as much. So anyway, is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the art fair experience?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's we've talked about kind of this high level stuff, but that's the art world right there.
Well, it can be. And it's interesting. There's a lot of ways to navigate and make art. There's museums, there's galleries, and then there's art fairs. And some of the artists, I was just at a 3-day thing, the CNS, which is a nonprofit that benefits people in our community by providing them with hospice care they can't afford. Yeah. So the sales I did this week, 35% is going to that. And they approached me a few years ago. And my father went through hospice care before he passed away, and I was so blown away about how important that work is that they do. Right, when you go through that with someone you don't know. So when they approached me, I said, "I'm in. You can count me in." And I've been a reluctant fair art seller for years, but I really have great conversations with people, and not everyone's attracted with the type of art I do. My work doesn't really connect with probably the larger audience at an art fair, but when it does connect, it connects with people and they get it. And so, this year was really good. And the audience was very lively but it's interesting in an art fair, you're like in a gallery, you're judged by who you're showing with, right? You have less control of that in an art fair. So you have everything under the sun. Yeah, subject matter approaches, and you have conceptual, but you have mostly non-conceptual work, and so my work is
especially in the West, you'll get like a lot of cowboy art and stuff like that.
There's cowboy art, there's landscapes that are very, there's things like that, but I try to just be who I am. I'm not going to change my work based upon being an art fair, but. There are those that do come and see. Maybe they're only 1 in 10 that will come, but those are the ones that you're going to connect with and they sell. So, it can be beneficial. And I really love, in this case this week, being able to support people who are doing good work in our community and helping people that don't have the funds to take care of hospice needs.
Oh, no, that's great. Yeah, no, and I think that's a great principle. I mean, one of the first, in fact, I even told my graduate school advisor this when I was interviewing for graduate school. I said, what did I say? I said, I've just found that I just make what I want to make and then see what happens, because it's so much work to make the work that making it for somebody else is just, and then it doesn't connect or they don't like it. it just seems like a waste of time.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do what I like and see where the chips fall.
And I will tell you, I won't tell you the name of the gallery, but there was a gallery here that really were about having the artwork trying to change and meet the needs of what the trend was at the time.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah. And I just wouldn't play that game because I for me, art is really about being honest. And when I buy art or collect art, it's about being a genuine attempt at something, a perspective.
Yeah.
But if you're always chasing the market, then you know what you're about is about the money.
Yeah.
And no matter how good you are, it doesn't matter if your facility with the medium is there, but you don't have any integrity in the message you have to say, then I'm not interested. I want someone that has something to say and they kind of say, in that lane where they're really being authentically who they are. And that's what I try to do. And I don't always connect with everyone, but that's okay. I'm connecting with me.
Yeah, you just need, well, and also you don't need to be liked by everybody. You just need to be liked by some,
Exactly.
Like,
well, yeah. And that's true, and when someone gets out of college, they're trying to find their voice and find what they want to do and their medium and all that. And I think, well, you'll find it. But when you do, just be receptive to that. Don't look at what other people are selling and try to mimic that.
Yeah.
Be authentically who you are, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, because and honestly, the other truth is you'll just fail. I mean, you just won't work. Yeah. I mean, because people can see. I mean, people
absolutely.
can tell.
You can see a difference. If it doesn't mean anything to you, it will mean nothing to anyone else.
Yeah, like, and for example, you go talk to people who are doing landscapes and cowboy art and other, kind of stuff that decorate Park City cabins with what East Coast people feel like they want to decorate their cabins with. They legitimately feel it. I mean, they're that person, and you're not going to outcompete them if you're not that person.
Yeah. There was someone that came by my booth. He says, I was looking for cowboys at night. I saw a painting here last year, and I was like, oh, good luck on finding that. That's very specific what you're looking for.
It stuck with him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what he wanted.
Yeah. And not to be snobby or like there's kitsch and, art speaks to people on different layers and different levels. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. But it is. Yeah. But it is a funny market. I mean, this is going more into fashion less than art. Like, I was up at Sundance this year and I kind of wandered into a clothing store there and they were selling I'm not kidding, like $10,000 cowboy boots and like $3,000 cowboy hats. And they looked ridiculous. Like, any person in the West who saw you wearing that would just be like, you're insane, let alone you spent $10,000 on that. But again, it's kind of like they were doing what people thought they should spend on that.
Well, yeah. So. And that's the other thing is having integrity. My work increases in value about 15% per year just for cost of living and how the value increases just subtly. Yeah. But I had a museum, I had a show, and they wanted to buy a work, and they were going to pay me double than what my work. I said, no, why don't you buy two? Because I can't do that because, it's having integrity. Those that have purchased my work before, I don't want to jump double and that artificially raises the value. So there's also that having an audience that you're nurturing, those that nurture you, and you want to make sure their investment, that you're respectful of that.
Yeah. Well, also it is a small world and it will catch up to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, because they're going to show that painting to all their friends and then they may compare prices.
Yeah. Yeah. So I try to be very consistent. Yeah. Whether I sell something online or a museum or gallery, the price is going to be the same.
Yeah, to me, like, if your work's not connecting with the audience you're presenting it to, find a new audience rather than change your work.
Sure.
I mean, try to find that person who is, and that can be exhausting too.
Yeah.
But, keep going talking to agents, keep going talking to galleries, and find one where you're a good fit.
Well, and it's not to say that you can't have, I've got like 3 different series going concurrently over the last years, and they have their place. They're different mediums, different approaches, but they're all authentically me. It's just when I'm shifting and thinking about things differently. And so you can nurture several lines of your work. Of
course, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I've tried to do.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks for coming and talking with us. And this was really illuminating. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, like and subscribe the RGB podcast and go check out James Rees's artwork and subscribe to his Instagram and we'll tag you in it. And anyway, thanks a lot for coming.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good day.
Thanks.